Hi, my name is Greg Molecke, and I want to talk to you about a project that I'm working with my co-authors Karen Moss and Fergus Leon. And the project is called Social Impact Measures, Prove and Beyond. And this is for the How Theories of Measurement and Social Impact Matter in Research Year 3 track at the Academy of Management. So one of the things that we have been interested in is the fact that there are many different definitions of social impact. There's no one right measure. And the question comes up, how are we to know which one people choose? Why and how does one version get chosen over others? And I think this is a really interesting question. And one of the things that we've realized is that how social impact is defined and operationalized relates in a lot of ways to what it is being used for. And we've been drawn recently to the idea that a lot of measurements are used either to prove things or to improve things, and that different types of measurements might be very differently operationalized and defined based on one of these two things. But at the same time, we know that these aren't the only two things, prove and improve. And so our paper asked the question, can we create insight on the ways social impacts are being used in management, strategy, and the learning loop process? And if we can understand the reasons people are using social impact, that should give us a lot of information into the definition and the nature of social impact itself. So what we've been doing is a literature review on these specific things. And we started off by just doing a simple Web of Science search for terms such as social impact, societal impact, blended value, shared value, the typical things you would expect to see in papers that are discussing these concepts. And we came up with over 1,000 hits, and we went through them in a quite painful manner to narrow them down into 153 articles that were really relevant. And what we found is that these articles were really grouped into 6 different groupings of how they were being used. And so I'm going to go through those now. So the first one is articles that really talked about social impact in terms of organizational purpose, ambition, and mission. So what is the goal of the organization, and how does that relate to social impact measurement? So when these two things are tied, that was our first grouping. The second one was really articles that talked about social impact measurement in terms of performance assessment. So if articles that really looked at how do we know that our performance is going well, these are the papers that made it into this group. The next grouping was a little bit surprising, and that's this group that really talks about social impact in terms of paradoxes, tensions, dilemmas, and this idea of how social impact is defined and is operationalized in the context of opposition to other things like the profit versus purpose, or the triple bottom line of purpose, financial, environmental, and social. And so papers that really dealt with these tensions made it into this grouping. The next one was what we talked about before, papers that really were trying to show how social impact measurement is used to prove to others. And so things that had to deal with accountability, reporting, legitimacy, and the marketing aspects of social impact really fell onto this to prove group. And then the next group was the improve group, papers that really talked about how social impact measurement could be used as a way to improve the organization's operations and efficiency, wealth, competitiveness, all those things. If it had to do with learning in any way and decision making, this was the fifth group. And then finally, the all-encompassing others group. And this is the group that talks about mainly other things like lit reviews, conceptual and theoretical papers that talked about combinations of the above 5 sections. And so this is a group we're still working through just a little bit as well. But overall, that's what we're working on, this concept that there is no one reliable measure of social impact, and that the way to really understand social impact is oftentimes through this idea of what it's being used for, and that there are certain different things that can be created as a typology of what those uses for that can then relate back to social impact measurements. This is a working paper still in progress, and so we still have a lot of work to do to really make some of those last connections to really say for each one of these groups, here are the different measures that are being used, and here's why we think that these measures are used in one type and not another, etc., etc. But hopefully that gets us to an interesting set of papers, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.